What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review for you. So admittedly, I thought was coming out next week. Turns out it was this week that we definitely wanted to go over was the latest offering from UK thrashers Xentrix, 7 Words. This again comes out on the 11th of November on Listenable Records. This band formed in 1988 in England. Back when you were younger?
I was younger.
I was younger too.
I was much younger.
This is their 6th album overall and 2nd since reforming in 2013. This band has kind of had a history of breakups and reformations and some member changes. And this is like a really just underrated band that came out of the UK in terms of their thrash scene. And I always thought that they kind of came out a bit late. Their first 2 albums, Shattered Existence and For Whose Advantage, I think are really solid underground thrash metal albums. But coming out when they did, like almost pretty much on the verge of thrash kind of dissipating in the 90s, where it was kind of getting heavier, like either you were going more towards death metal or you heard the Black Album and you were like, fuck, I want to make some of that Black Album money. Yeah, thrash was kind of in an interesting spot, but they are back, and they are back with something that is definitely more just straightforward thrash. This is like straightforward modern thrash, I would say.
No reinventation of the wheel by any means, but solid fucking thrash.
It's a solid wheel. People have been around on it for a while, like since, the 80s.
It's made of wood and iron and
riffs.
And riffs.
Definitely
lots
riffs.
And lots and lots and lots and lots of riffs.
The strength of this band, I've always said, is pretty much built on their riff work. Their riff work is awesome. They definitely wear a lot of their influences on their sleeve, but their influences are very solid influences. Early Metallica, Exodus, Testament, say a little bit of Creator in there, and maybe even comparable to like a more modern contemporary like Evil too. This is just straightforward thrash, lots of groove, but again, the strength is the riff work on here. The riff work, it kind of finds this nice little area between being melodic, like kind of tuneful and accessible, but also just very biting and snarly.
Crunchy, beefy riffs. Chuggy. You know I like the chugs, and there's chugs all over this record. And that's what it is. Again, I think a little meat and potatoes, but like the greatest meat and potatoes.
Yeah, it's like a nice cut of fucking meat and a potato the size of a toddler.
Yeah, kind of like Cracker Barrel, but Ponderosa.
Wait a minute, I feel like you downgraded it. I think it was downgraded to begin with. No one goes to Cracker Barrel for the fucking food.
For the potatoes, they have great mashed potatoes. Great mashed potatoes. Ponderosa had great steaks. It didn't last long, but they had it.
I mean, they had okay steaks.
They were decent.
Anyway, this is better than Ponderosa or Cracker Barrel. I would go see this band live over going to any Cracker Barrel or Ponderosa.
I mean, I would go see just about anything live over going to Cracker Barrel for food, except their taters. Their taters are pretty solid. So you have some crystal clear production here, produced by Mr. Andy Sneap, and if you've heard anything that Andy Sneap's done over the last, say, 8 years or so, you can kind of get an idea of what the production sounds like.
You know exactly what it sounds like.
Super clear, very punchy in all the right spots. Everything has a great even mix, but those guitars, dude, are fucking some of the greatest guitar tone produced ever by that man.
I have to give him credit there. The guitar tone is pure crunch, especially when you get down to like the big chuggy riffs, like when you get down to songs like Kill and Protect, My War. Like, those songs just deliver some absolutely crunchy, nasty, heavy riffs. And part of it is due to the production. My thing with Andy Sneap is, like I said, I've heard this, but I also heard this, like, years ago, like on, I don't know, every Testament album he's ever produced, every Exodus album he's ever produced, probably all the Overkill albums he's produced.
Yep.
He doesn't move the knobs. Like, everything is just, like, we keep it set and they just walk in the studio. I was like, hey, you don't want to mix anything? I was like, nah, you're ready to go. Did you touch anything since the last 8 bands have been through? No. Now, this is their second go with new vocalist Jay Walsh, or new vocalist and rhythm guitarist, and I think this one he sounds a bit more comfortable. Their last album, Bury the Pain, we actually went over it years ago back when we still knew nothing about lighting or talking in front of a camera, really.
How to be on the internet.
Yeah, we were still really winging it, not like we are now.
Please don't watch those early videos. If you like us now, don't go back.
But that one was definitely like, all right, we got to reestablish the brand again, get back at it. It had been a long time since they'd actually put out an album. And Jay, I think, was still trying to, like, find his vocal presence in that band. Like, It was a little flat on that one, but again, the power of this band, I would say, is definitely in their riffs. This one, I think he sounds a lot better. His vocals, again, they feel very familiar because they definitely sound like some of the bands they're influenced by. Like, he kind of sounds like Chuck Billy, and occasionally he kind of sounds like Millie Petroza from Creator. And it sounds like all of them are trying to sound like James Hetfield at a certain point, too. But it's a solid delivery. Like, he finds a way to be tuneful, and actually match up to the melodies behind it, but also deliver, like, a good, solid thrash bark that, actually has some, like, tenacity behind it.
Yeah, his presence is actually pretty spectacular. He's always in tune. It doesn't sound like he's trying to push himself too far. He does take chances every now and again. It seems to pay off. I wouldn't state that he has a really high register, as some thrash bands do. He's got kind of a nice mid-range going on there.
You're not going to get an array of wail.
And while he doesn't go too far outside the box, he definitely makes himself known.
He fits the moment that they're in. Like, if they're going for, like, a big, heavy breakdown, which there are tons of those on here, like, he kind of gets in a little bit lower register. He gets a little bit raspier, but, when there's a melody behind that to match up to, he does a good job with it. And melody is kind of a big part of this. And despite, being more melodic, it doesn't come across as, like, cheesy. Like, there are anthems on here, but it doesn't feel, like, super cheesy, like, let's go for it, dude, you can do it, brother, like that kind of stuff. Like, it feels like, yeah, you're pissed off and you're telling everyone about it.
But still tasteful, like in Behind the Walls of Treachery, that has some maiden harmonies in it. Songs like Spitcoin, My War, Kill and Protect, those are all very melodic. It's not all throughout the song, but there's definitely more presence of melody in those songs than other songs on the album.
And whatever melody you think might be missing on some of these songs, it's definitely made up for with the absolutely killer lead work on here. It's very shreddy, lots of really cool phrasing, and you get to hear like a lot of different stuff. Like, you get good shreddy leads, you get more tuneful melodic ones. Sometimes you just get like some really cool lead harmonies on here too.
And they're very clean tone. There's not a lot of reverb on it. There's not anything that would make it more flat. Let's call it, there's not anything on here that would make it more flashy if there wasn't talent there.
Yeah.
Some lead work does that. They add in some effects and they're like, well, we'll kind of wash over the fact that there's nothing going on here. In this case, it's very clear toned. You can tell there's not a lot of addition to the overall tone of the riff. It's just there. They're phrased very well. It's very tasteful. It always fits the song. There's nothing that goes outside the box there either.
Yeah. And, song-wise, like, this is, again, we brought up meat and potatoes. It is very meat and potatoes, but it's one of those, like, things where it's just structured right. Like, there's not a lot of, like, giant, flashy, like a polyrhythm or a weird fill or some, like, weird off-time section, because a lot of this just very straightforward in terms of the rhythm section on here, too. But, again, it's done well. Like, it's generally more focused on just being, like, tenacious, like just, very angry, pissed off fucking old school thrash. Like, that's kind of what you need in thrash, I think.
I was gonna say, you do get some bangers on here. Ghost Tape number 10 has some really, really neat riffs, some great transitions in it. My War is extremely aggressive, and then Kill and Protect also.
Yeah, Kill and Protect in particular, that almost sounds like, if Bolt Thrower just became a flat-out thrash metal band. Like, it has that, like straight up bolt thrower groove, but like machine gun chugs behind it, and did the breakdowns on that song. Like, those are like pit worthy ones. Like, those are just nasty, bang your head, like bring it down to a halftime groove and watch people go ape shit.
But the one on Kill and Protect, while it has the halftime groove, also has this really neat like crawler thing briefly towards the back half of the riff structure. It's really cool.
And there's some fun, like, off-time drumming on that, too, which was kind of an issue on here. Like, I like the drumming. It's very much in the pocket. It's very straightforward. But at the same time, like, it kind of goes to the well a lot in terms of, like, certain rhythms. Like, there's a certain stomping rhythm that's on here that I've heard on so many thrash metal albums, and it kind of just hangs there a little bit too much, especially on 7 Words and Spitcoin. It's almost to the point where the songs sound similar just because the drum beat is that same sort of standard gallop stomp. It's a good rhythm. I just think it's used quite a bit. And again, like, some more flashy fills in there probably would, add a little bit something to this. Like, he reminds me a lot of Tom Hunting, but Tom Hunting, I think, is a little bit more creative with the fills. He takes a few more chances here and there. This is still good. It's just that was something I noticed.
Yeah, there's not really a whole lot of times where the drums really fall outside of just a D beat or a little gallop or something. They do get a little bit syncopated in Everybody Loves You When You're Dead.
That is kind of a fun song. It's more like the anthemic rocker.
Mm-hmm.
And, I like how the guitars drop out and it's just the bass drums and vocals on, like, the verses. And then, dude, the riff that carries it is, like, almost just an instant fucking earworm.
I mean, riffs are notably what this record is, because everything is just so straightforward and in the pocket. The riffs really carry this album, hands down.
Yeah.
No questions asked. Every song has some sort of awesome riff in it.
Yeah, I legit, I found killer riffs in every single song. Mm-hmm. And, some splashes of melody, like the intro to Everybody Loves You When You're Dead and the last track, Anything But the Truth, both actually have some more clean guitars. Mm-hmm. And you don't get a lot of breaks. Like, when the song gets going, it stays there. Like, It stays pretty much like, all right, we're just going to keep rolling. Not going to dip in any, like, melodic territory or, like, clean breaks in here. Like, we've already hit thrash. We're just going to stay there.
Right, we've already hit that speed because there's not a lot of intro. Even the couple songs where it does have a really melodic lead-in and it gets quiet, it doesn't stay there.
Yeah.
And there's really no letdown after that. You're just full bore, full speed ahead, ready to kill someone in a mosh pit.
And it doesn't bother with an intro either, because the beginning of Behind the Walls of Treachery actually kind of works as that. Like, it's a good, steady build-up to a fucking banger of a song. But I do have an issue with the last track, Anything But the Truth. This song opens up as it's going to be, like, more of a dark, sinister song. Like, it feels more foreboding. But unfortunately, it kind of just gets back into that thrash gear that has been kind of all over this album. At that point, I kind of wanted to hear a little bit more, especially since it led in so differently. Like, you kind of expected, like, a more slow, brooding track, just, like, maybe even slower than, Everybody Loves You When You're Dead. At that point, I think it would have added something to this album, a different wrinkle, and closed the album on a slightly different note, other than a note that you've kind of heard on this entire album.
Yeah, because it did really sound like it was going to take that. The last song had potential to be kind of, like, almost epic in proportions, especially that lead-in. The lead-in took quite some time. Even when all the instruments came in together, there was still a time where it had a nice build to it. There weren't vocals right away. I was like, all right, we're going to have a bit of a jammer here. But, nope. Right back to D-beat and thrash.
It was still good.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It just would have been nice to see something different, just to kind of trick the brain a little bit.
True. And, like, there is a fair amount of, like, repeated ideas in here, and granted, I think they're good ideas, but, some different things on here just to sort of spice up, I think would be nice. Like, this is, again, very meat and potatoes, but there's some decent seasoning, but maybe not enough in certain spots. But overall, I thought this was really solid, and honestly, like, I think this is an improvement on their last one. So, I'm gonna go ahead and give this 3.5 stars. This is really fucking good thrash. Yes, Andy Sneap produced this. You'll be able to figure that out within 30 seconds of listening to it.
If that.
Yeah, if that. And I do have an issue with the fact that all of the albums that he produces kind of sound the same. But it's kind of a good same, I guess, if you like his style of production. But what matters here are the riffs. The riffs on here drive this album. I think there's a good amount of, like, just pissed off energy. It's anthemic, but it doesn't sound cheesy. But there's still melody on here. Like, it has, like, a good balance of a lot of shit that people like about thrash metal. So, yeah, I recommend this. Again, if you're a big fan of Exodus, Overkill, early Metallica, Testament, any of those bands, any band that Andy Sneap produced, I figured you'd probably dig this. But, yeah, check it out.
I'm going to go ahead and give it a 3. There are great riffs throughout this album, great melodies, good times. I didn't really stop banging my head. It is meat and potatoes. It is pretty much a one-trick pony in most aspects. What they're doing is good, though. I don't want to downplay that. I can't write riffs like that. It's very entertaining, very bouncy, very energetic. It seems kind of generic at times, like, all right, I've heard this, and this, and this, and this, and this. But it's not bad. If you're gonna stay a one-trick pony, at least make it a good one-trick pony. Make that one trick a good trick. And it was a good trick. It just didn't grab my attention the way that I thought it might, because there are so many moments in this record where it has potential to take a different path and a different avenue, and it didn't do that. The first 6 songs, maybe with the exception of some brief moments in Everybody Loves You When You're Dead, kind of all fit the same pattern, the same structure, just very formulaic, riff, D-beat, good times, thrash. It got a little bit exciting at the end, and it was cool, but they still didn't really do a whole lot with it. Overall, though, it wasn't a bad listen. I definitely recommend, if you like thrash metal, especially if you like, Exodus, Testament, Creator, even things like Shadows Fall, I heard a little bit of influence too, or like those good driving riffs in, say, like an earlier Lamb of God record. Like, they're in here. Yeah. I'd definitely give it a listen and a spin, and if you like thrash, you're going to like this, because this is definitely fucking thrash.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. Our shop is there. We have shirts. We don't have extra large shirts, but we will eventually
We're sorry.
Get some more. And we will eventually have some different merch in there. We have audio episodes of our stuff in there. Hopefully we're going to upload some more of those in there. And Jammin' John, do you have anything to say about
Denver Death Fest? I don't have anything specific just yet. However, today is Sunday, November 13th, and tomorrow on Monday, November 14th, I will be having a meeting, finally, about Denver Death Fest to see what goes on. I am very hopeful to announce some bands here in the upcoming week. Got some bangers on the bill, hopefully.
And it'll be in Denver, too.
Yep, and it'll also be in Denver, because that's where the Denver Death Fest is. Not Denver, Spain, not Denver, Ohio, although Denver, Ohio would be pretty fucking rad.
Denver, Alaska.
If there was one. Denver, Alaska. Get your snow equipment.
Because it's not a real place.
Prepare to never have the sun set. Anyway, yeah. There's a announcement coming up about Denver Death Fest soon, so stay tuned for that. Last but not least, thank you. Thank you for coming here repeatedly and liking and subscribing and continuing to look at our mugs and, be a part of the Thralls army, the Thrallers, the almighty Thrall of something. Thank you for being here for that. We appreciate you even sticking around to hear us do this awkward thank you portion where we try to find words to thank you, to tell you how much we appreciate you.
I've definitely said words before.
Yep, he said words, and I'm going to let him thank you too, because I always seem to do the thanking. So thank you, and you, and especially you. You know who you are. Thank you.
It's so weird when he points. Anyway, thank you all once again. I don't really have much to add to that other than another thank you, because thank you.
That was pretty good.
That was good.
I didn't see that coming.
I know. I'm very unpredictable.
Thank you.
And of course, we will catch you later.